Welcome, friends. It's Miss Gisa, and today I have my co-stars, Miss Kelly from At the Liquid Medium, and my daughter Adele.
Hi.
Miss Kelly, we are so excited to have you back. Where are we going on our adventure today?
Well, if you look closely at our outfits, you might get a clue. Don't know what you see here, but today we are going to talk about mushrooms. I am thrilled and honored to be a part of this mycology adventure Miss Gisa began for us this past week. We have learned so many fun fungi facts from Miss Gisa's read-alongs and lessons. Now it's my turn to share my culinary knowledge and about the benefits of eating mushrooms. Miss Gisa, what is your favorite fungi fact?
I had no idea how many fungi species there are in the world. And so that's something that I learned when I was getting prepared to teach about mushrooms and fungi with the kids. So yeah, just that there are millions.
It's a really incredible kingdom. Even the yeast that we talked about in our last episode is lumped into that category.
Yeah, and molds.
But for me, the most surprising and interesting fungi fact that I learned this week are the differences between plants and mushrooms, and that the cell walls of mushrooms are closely related to the cell walls that make up the outer skeletons of insects and crustaceans.
Yeah. I know. Who would have thought?
They're fascinating. Now, how about you, Adele? Do you like eating mushrooms? And can you tell us what your favorite is?
Yeah, I really like eating mushrooms. My favorite mushroom is portobello mushroom.
Yeah, the portobellos, they're so big and beautiful.
So there's a ton of interesting folklore about fungi. And in the book, A Fungus Among Us, that Miss Gisa read to us this week, we learned that people originally thought fairies were responsible for the appearance of mushrooms.
Now, that's a very imaginative explanation, but thanks to mycologists, we understand a little better how mushrooms grow. Adele, you recently used your imagination to create a story of how mushrooms appear. Can you explain the science behind the mushroom life cycle?
Okay. Mushrooms begin as a spore. When the spores land, they will grow into a stringy hyphae to join with the mycelium, a root-like structure that will grow the primordia that develop into the fruiting body. The fruiting body is where the mushroom seems to magically appear. When that mushroom has reached maturity, it releases spores and starts the whole process over again.
Adele, that was fantastic. Let's talk about some fungi food science. Mushrooms make their way to our plates foraged from the forest or cultivated from mushroom farms. Mushrooms are coveted for their flavor and texture they add to recipes. They are loaded with protein and B vitamins. Has anyone ever heard of the term umami to describe the flavor of food?
Yeah.
So umami is a Japanese word that translates to deliciousness, and it is used to describe a flavor created by glutamates. I chose some of my favorite cultivated mushrooms for our recipes today. They are all unique, tasty, and most important of all, they are some of the most nourishing and healthy foods you can eat. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our fungi friends used for today's recipes.
Hi everyone. Before we get busy in the kitchen, I want to take you on another short adventure. We've watched Miss Gisa's videos, and in a lot of those books, they were telling you where you could find mushrooms in the forest. Well, today we're gonna go on an urban mushroom hunt, and I'm gonna take you to one of my favorite stores, and we're gonna get some really delicious varieties for our recipes today. So let's go check it out. So here we are at Mart, and we have hit the muddler load of mushrooms. I've got some beautiful shiitakes, king oysters. Ask me to take a second to look at all the variety that's here. There's even baby king oysters. This is going to be so delicious. First we have lion's mane, or Yamabu shiitake, which is Japanese for mountain priest. You can see this is quite the beautiful specimen. It has like a shaggy-like texture and almost a brain-like shape to it. I adore eating this mushroom sauteed with butter, salt, and pepper, and a little sherry wine. Many describe the flavor close to lobster or eggplant. I'm really interested to hear how Miss Gisa and Adele will describe the majestic lion's mane mushroom. Next on our list is the shiitake mushroom. Many scientists, mycologists, and research professionals study and promote the health-stimulating properties found in shiitake mushrooms. Thank you, shiitake. The stems of the mushroom are tough and woody, so I like to save them, and you can see they just kind of twist off here. Those are those gills that we learned about. Here's the stem, and I'll save these and put them in my broth just to add flavor and nutrients. Now that we've met our mountain priests, I would like to present His Majesty, the king oyster mushroom. Kitchen connoisseurs celebrate this royal shroom for its thick flesh and pleasant flavor. You can stir fry this mushroom until it's tender with crispy edges and serve it with herbs and butter. They are wonderful mixed into holiday stuffing and pairs well with lamb, pork, and fish. King oysters are loaded with antioxidants, proteins, and B vitamins. Last but certainly not least is my personal favorite mushroom, the hen of the woods, or maitake mushrooms. You can see why it gets its name. It almost looks like it has the feathers that you would see on a little hen. The Japanese translation for maitake is the dancing mushroom. And folklore says that this name came to be from the joyful dancing of the people who find this mushroom in the wild. I'm yet to find one in nature, but I do a little dancing when I buy them at the farmer's market or the grocery store. These dense, thick mushrooms are delicious baked or sauteed, and some will even serve them stuffed with seafood, almonds, and spices. I like to bake mine whole in the oven with olive oil, salt, and pepper. I'll garnish it with lemon juice and devour them with toast and cheese. So what I'll demonstrate is two really simple ways to cook your mushrooms so that you can eat them on their own in a very simple way, or you can add them into more complex recipes, but you'll certainly get to experience that umami flavor, whichever way you decide. So let's start with the lion's mane. This mushroom doesn't have much of a stalk or stem. I'm just gonna kind of trim these tiny little ends off that were connected to the growing substrate, which is like a little sawdust type material. And you can see they're really easy to even just tear apart by hand. So you can see where it kind of attached to that growing surface there. And from there, what I like to do is cut them into thick slices and cook them in chunks like so that they kind of maintain a shape. And you can either eat them whole like this once they're cooked, or you can chop them up finer and add them to a recipe. So while I'm chopping these, I have a cast iron skillet heating up. I'm going to add the mushrooms to the pan, to the hot pan, dry. I'm just going to arrange these in the pan. You can hear it starting to kind of sizzle a little. That's good. Usually about 5 minutes or so, and you can check and see how they're browning, kind of move them around a little bit, but you definitely want to leave them undisturbed for at least 5 minutes. Our lime manes are just about ready to flip. They're browning up nicely, and you can see that they've kind of shrunk in size a little bit. So this one looks like it's a little bit more done. Let's check it. Nice and brown. And this one looks good as well. So once you flip these, we'll give them a little bit more time to brown this side. And then I'll show you the next step. Add in some butter. I really like to add just a touch of cooking sherry to coat with the butter. You can use white wine or you can totally omit this. It's just a personal choice. So I will let this kind of coat the mushrooms and allow them to cook a little bit longer so they are very tender. And what I'm also going to do at this point is add in a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. I really love using smoked sea salt. I got this from Mountain Rose Herbs. I think it really enhances the flavor of the lion's head mushroom. Just kind of sprinkle that. And a little cracked pepper to taste, and stir to combine. And I'll show you what they look like when they're done. They're ready to be added into your favorite recipe or part of a side dish for a beautiful entree. So we jumped right into cooking the lion's mane mushrooms, and I forgot to mention that, of course, we want to start with nice clean hands. The other interesting thing about mushrooms, depending on who you talk with, you may or may not want to wash them. It's not really going to hurt them either way, but the thing to avoid when cooking mushrooms is adding in too much moisture, so you don't want to alter the texture of it. But if you feel like you got your mushrooms from a good source and you know that they haven't been handled too much, it's fine to just brush off any dirt that you see on them if they were wild mushrooms. But most mushrooms that we get at the farmer's market and in stores have been cultivated on a mushroom farm or in a mushroom house, and they actually grow out of these man-made logs or actual logs, but it's a very clean environment. And from there, they're packaged or handed directly to you. So if you cook them well and you have nice clean hands, it's okay to not wash your mushrooms. So for the maitake, again, there's not much of a stem, but we're gonna just cut off this little tough part on the end, and this will go into our saved stem pile. And then what I'll do if I'm going to saute these is just kind of cut them in half so I can sear them. You can also maybe cut them into quarters, depending on how big of a mushroom it is. You can also take this mushroom and roast it whole in the oven with some butter and olive oil, and then squeeze the lemon on it after. But I think I want to use these for a barbecue recipe. So today we're going to sear them in the pan. So what I will do now is add a little butter and olive oil to the pan, because why not? Evenly coat. And let's sear our maitake. So again, I'll check on these in about 5 minutes. I'm just gonna flip them until they're brown on all sides. So something that's really cool about mushrooms is that they can be a great replacement for meat because of the texture and the protein content that they have. You can use them in place of meat. So I really like to do, I mean, who doesn't love barbecue sauce? So I was thinking maybe some barbecue sliders with the maitake, king oysters, and shiitake. I think that would be a cool combo. While the maitake are searing, let's prep our king oysters to go next. I love king oysters for the flavor and the texture, but they're such an amazing mushroom. You get such great bang for your buck. You can eat the stem along with the cap, and you can, I wish you could see how solid of a mushroom this is. I think you could hear, it's almost like a little drum. Maybe we can make a song for our maitake dance later, but these are really cool fungi. So what I'll do is just kind of trim up the bottom portion of it. And you want these to cook evenly, so try to make even cuts. And I really like them sliced thin, so they get that brown crispness on the edges and tender on the inside. They look really pretty plated like this as well. But again, once they're cooked, you can dice them and put them in other recipes. Or what I think I'm going to do is kind of shred up all 3 mushrooms and do like a pulled mushroom barbecue. So I'll finish chopping these. We'll check on the maitake, and these will be next on deck to cook. Okay, maitake is looking good. They're starting to get nice brown, crispy on the edges, and they are tender in the middle. So I am going to sprinkle them with some Himalayan pink salt, a little pepper. We'll set those aside and get the king oysters going. Let's cook up these king oysters. I'm going to add some more olive oil and butter to my pan. Are you sensing a pattern here for how I like to cook mushrooms? So we'll slide these in. Okay, we'll let this lower layer brown up a little bit, and then we'll flip the top layer and just keep going until they are a beautiful golden brown and a nice texture. Now for the last character in our fungi story, let's chop our shiitakes while our king oysters are sauteing. I like to do nice thin slices. I think the shiitake just end up looking really pretty when you cut them this way, but you can dice them, you can do them in bigger chunks. It's really whatever your preference is. And load up on the shiitake. Same technique that we did with the others. Give this bottom layer a chance to brown and crisp up, and then mix them around. So now that we have this big, beautiful bowl of king oysters, maitake, and shiitake, we can eat these on their own. We can add them into other recipes. Like I mentioned before, I think I might do like a barbecued kind of pulled pork recipe with these. You can keep them in your fridge and add them into omelets, put them on toast, let your imagination run wild, and have a fantastic time enjoying your fabulous fungi.
Before we get started with our taste tests, let's use our sense of smell, sight, and touch to describe our specimens. Miss Gisa and Adele, do you have your mushrooms handy?
Yes.
We sure do.
Do you know which is which?
Well, I know this is Lion's name, right? Because you told me this is one of your favorites, Miss Kellie, right? So king oyster, shiitake, and then maitake. Okay, so maitake. Okay, so we have them all.
So now what I'd like you to do is to kind of pull them apart.
Okay.
And you can tell me what you think they smell like. And you can also describe what they feel like. You can listen. Sometimes they make little noises if you break them apart or squeeze them. When I was introducing the king oyster, you can actually use it like a little drum.
They smell funny. I don't know how to describe it, but I kind of hear like weird rubbery sounds when I squish it.
Yeah, they do feel, they feel a little rubbery and a little squishy. Should we taste it?
Well, I don't recommend eating mushrooms raw.
Okay.
They can be a little bit upsetting to your stomach.
Okay.
Better to cook them. Even if you want, like, put them in your salad, but cook them first.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, because when I put them in the salad, I usually use them raw. So good to know. And the oysters, is that why they're called oyster? Is it because the way they look? They do kind of smell a little more like seafood.
Yeah, I think, that's interesting. I don't know why they did get the name oyster mushroom, if it's the look of them or the smell.
The feel of the oyster, it's like bouncy kind of, but it's chocolate too.
Yeah, next time you get a whole king oyster, I encourage everybody to just hold it and just do a little drum beat on it. It's a really funny, fun kitchen experiment. I mean, who doesn't want to make music with their food?
Right. Kelly, what's your favorite mushroom?
That's so hard to pick. If I had to nail down my top favorite, it would probably be the maitakes.
So what are we tasting today?
First off, I want you to try them now that we did our other senses. I want you to try them cooked on their own without the added into a recipe.
Okay.
So I have the plain one set aside for you. That's shiitake.
This one.
Shiitake.
It does taste a little bit like meat, right? I mean, I don't eat meat, but I used to when I was younger, and there's definitely a meaty taste to that. What is this one?
So that is the king oyster.
Okay.
This one's good too. But it's hard to bite into. It's like stiffer, I think.
Yeah, I noticed I was gonna bite it in half, but I noticed I had to put the whole thing in.
I think out of all of these in this jar, my favorite was the shiitake.
Oh wait, we haven't tried the lion's mane though. This is the lion's mane, right? In the other jar.
That's the lion's mane. And a lot of times those, when I cook them, they don't even make it into a recipe because I just snack on them right out of the pan.
They're really good too. All right. So should we taste the patties first?
Yeah, that would be, I think that's great. It's kind of like an appetizer. So for this recipe, I used, I cooked the lion's mane that we saw in the demo.
Okay.
And then what I did was I diced them up and I added in veggies and breadcrumbs and seasoning and made a lion's mane version of like a crab cake. So you could eat that as an appetizer. You could make a sandwich out of it.
Looks amazing. Oh my gosh.
It's delicious.
Adele, you can write all of my reviews when I open up a restaurant.
So Kelly, we have another beautiful dish here that you've made, and I'll assemble it the way you suggested, but would you like to tell us about this?
Sure. So this is something really easy, I think you could do to make a nice meal out of mushrooms. In the demo, I cooked king oyster, shiitake, and maitake, but feel free to use any combination that you like. I chopped them up really fine after they were cooked. I whipped up my friend's recipe for homemade barbecue sauce. Hi, Pam. And what you want to do is just pour a little barbecue sauce in with your mixed mushrooms, get some good bread or a little slider bun, and you have vegetarian, kind of like a pulled pork little sandwich. I also included some coleslaw, so you have a little garnish on there as well.
Thank you. Let's show everyone the coleslaw. Look at that. That's beautiful. So beautiful.
So yeah, I was really fortunate. You can see in the video, we got a lot of the mushrooms from a really cool grocery store called Mart. But you can also find mushrooms at your local farmer's market. So I was able to pick up some lion's mane at Santa Monica this week, and we got some cabbage and carrots. That's where I was inspired to do the barbecue version.
Great. Oh, yum. I can't wait to taste this. Kelly, you about done yourself again. So delicious. This is like a dream for a veg head like me because I love barbecue sauce, but I don't like meat. So it's such a great dish to use, the barbecue sauce on, and then all the veggies.
The lettuce, does it have the buttermilk we made on it? Because it tastes like it tastes like the buttermilk that we made a few episodes ago.
You know, Adele, you have some really good spidey sense there because there is just a touch of buttermilk in that dressing.
Wow.
It tastes really good.
I'm glad that it shows through. Yeah.
Oh, Kelly, this is delicious. Can I just hire you to make all my meals?
Sure thing. I hope within the next year we could host a whole vegetarian barbecue. We can invite the meat eaters and see what they think about the mushrooms.
Yeah, they're delicious. So, where are we going on our next adventure? Any ideas yet?
So I think that our next adventure we're going to do is going to be on fermentation, and I would like to share with you some different krauts that I like to make. It's
Ooh.
one of my favorite kitchen experiments to do. And then from there, you have some really exciting lessons coming up. And I am just thrilled to customize a menu around those lessons. I think it'll,
Fun. Okay.
yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, this year is all about the life cycles in science. So, we've learned about the mushroom life cycle and different insects, different mammal life cycles. So we will continue that throughout the school year. So we'll look forward to seeing your menus and where our science culinary adventures take us.
I really appreciate you providing me with the inspiration for these menus. It's really cool when you can bridge the gap between science and food and have a little celebration after you've worked hard learning all of this stuff and teaching all of this stuff. I hope it's as much fun for our audience as it is for us. So please, as always, share with your friends and family, and don't forget,
Hit that like button.
And subscribe.
So I propose that we end this episode with a little mushroom dance in honor of our fungi friends.
I love that idea. Let's do it.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, thank you.